When corporate lawyer Victoria receives a desperate call from her ex-lover Dominic, after 3 years of silence, she's thrust into a deadly game of deception involving murder, corporate espionage, and organized crime. But nothing is as it seems, and everyone has secrets that could destroy them all. The rain hammered against the floor-tisseling windows of the penthouse office like bullets against bulletproof glass. Victoria Hale stood silhouetted against the storm, her reflection ghost-like in the dark glass, as she watched Manhattan writhe beneath sheets of water 40 floors below. The city looked vulnerable from this height, its neon bleeding into watercolor smears across the night. Her phone vibrated against the mahogany desk. The caller ID showed a number she hadn't seen in 3 years, one that still made her chest tighten with a mixture of rage and something she refused to name. Dominic. She didn't turn from the window. Victoria. His voice carried the same gravelly warmth that had once undone her completely. Now it felt like sandpaper against an open wound. I need your help. She laughed, the sound sharp enough to cut. You have some nerve calling me, especially tonight. Tonight? It's our anniversary. The words slipped out before she could stop them. 3 years since you destroyed everything. Silence stretched between them, filled only by the storm's percussion against glass. When he spoke again, his voice was different, smaller. Victoria, I'm in trouble. Real trouble. She finally turned, her reflection now overlaying the city like a double exposure. At 34, Victoria commanded one of the most feared corporate law firms in New York. Her reputation for ruthless precision had built empires and toppled dynasties. Men like Dominic Cross didn't call her for help unless the world was ending. What kind of trouble? The kind that gets people killed? Victoria's fingers tightened on the phone. Through the rain, she could see the Hudson River churning like black coffee. Where are you, Brooklyn? Warehouse District. They think I'm dead? Maybe you should be.
Ow.
The words hung between them like a blade.
What?
She heard him exhale slowly, and for a moment, she was 28 again. Watching him pack his things, while she begged him to explain why he was walking away from everything they'd built together. I probably deserve that, he said quietly. But there's something you need to know about why I left, about what I've been doing these 3 years. I don't want to know. Marcus is involved, Victoria. Her blood turned to ice water. Marcus. Caldwell, her business partner, her mentor, the man who'd taken her from small-town nothing to Manhattan royalty. The man who'd held her while she cried over Dominic's betrayal. You're lying. I wish I was. Meet me at the old pier, Pier 47. You remember? Of course she remembered. It's where they'd first kissed, where he'd told her he loved her, where she'd believed in fairy tales and happy endings. Give me one reason why I shouldn't hang up and pretend this call never happened, because Marcus killed my brother. The phone slipped from her fingers, clattering against the marble floor. Through the rain-streaked windows, the city lights, blurred into smears of gold and red, like blood and fire painting the night. Victoria sank into her leather chair, her carefully constructed world tilting off its axis. She retrieved the phone with shaking hands. Tony's been dead for 2 years, she whispered. Car accident in Miami? That's what they wanted everyone to believe. I have proof, Victoria. Photos, recordings, bank transfers. Has been using Caldwell and Associates to launder money for the Kozlov crime family. Tony found out. So Marcus had him killed and made it look like an accident. Victoria's office suddenly felt too small, the walls pressing in like a coffin. Marcus Kozlov. She'd heard whispers about the Russian oligarch who'd been expanding his operations into legitimate businesses, but she'd never imagined. Why should I believe anything you say? You're a liar, Dominic. You're good at it. Because you know I never lied about loving you. The admission hit her like a physical blow. Outside, lightning split the sky, illuminating the storm in stark relief. For a moment, the city looked frozen in time, suspended between destruction and rebirth. I'll be there in an hour, she heard herself say. Victoria, be careful. If Marcus suspects, you know the line went dead. Victoria stared at the phone, her reflection staring back from its black screen. In it, she saw not the polished corporate warrior she'd become, but the broken woman Dominic had left behind. The woman who'd spent 3 years rebuilding herself from ashes, only to have him threaten to burn it all down again with a single phone call. She grabbed her coat and headed for the elevator, knowing she was walking toward either her salvation or her destruction. In the elevator's mirrored walls, she watched herself descend, each floor taking her further from the safety of her tower and closer to the man who'd already destroyed her once.
The storm was waiting.
The abandoned pier stretched into the East River like a broken finger pointing toward oblivion. Victoria's heels clicked against wet concrete as she made her way through the industrial wasteland of shuttered warehouses and rusted shipping containers. The storm had passed, leaving the air thick with the smell of river water and decay. She found Dominic sitting on a piling at the pier's edge, his silhouette dark against the city lights reflecting on the water. He looked thinner than she remembered, harder around the edges. His dark hair was longer now, touching his collar, and a scar ran from his left temple to his jaw. Whatever he'd been doing these 3 years had marked him. He came, he said without turning around. Don't read anything into it. Victoria stopped 10 feet away, close enough to talk, far enough to run. You have 5 minutes. He stood slowly, favoring his right leg. When he turned, a streetlight caught his face, and Victoria's breath hitched. His green eyes, once bright with laughter and mischief, looked haunted, hollowed out. You look good, Vic. Success suits you. Don't call me that. Only he had ever called her Vic, and hearing it now felt like fingers probing an old wound. For minutes, Dominic reached into his jacket, and Victoria tensed. He only pulled out a manila envelope, thick with documents. Tony was working as an accountant for one of Marcus's shell companies. Thought he was helping with legitimate real estate investments. Dominic's voice was steady, but Victoria caught the tremor underneath. When he realized what he was really doing, he copied everything. Bank records, wire transfers, meeting transcripts. Instead of going to the police, he went to you. He was scared. Marcus had already started asking questions about missing files. Dominic opened the envelope, revealing photographs and documents. Tony gave me everything and told me to disappear. Said he'd handle it himself. Victoria moved closer despite herself, drawn by professional curiosity. The documents looked legitimate, and if they were real 2 days later, he was dead. Dominic's voice cracked. Single car accident on I-95. Except the brake lines had been cut. How do you know that? It's because I paid a mechanic in Miami $5,000 to take another look at the wreck. He handed her a photograph of severed brake lines. Clean cuts. Professional job. Victoria studied the image, her legal mind automatically cataloging evidence. This doesn't prove Marcus ordered it. No, but this does. He showed her a bank statement. A wire transfer for $50,000 from one of Marcus's accounts to a company called Black Harbor Solutions, dated the day before Tony's death. Black Harbor is a front for the Kozlov organization's enforcement arm, Dominic continued. I've been tracking them for 3 years. They specialize in making problems disappear. Victoria's hands trembled as she read the documents. If this was true, if Marcus had really... Why didn't you come to me 3 years ago? Could have because Marcus would have killed you too. The words hit her like cold water. Victoria looked up from the documents to find Dominic watching her with an expression she'd never seen before. Fear, not for himself, but for her. That's why you left, she whispered. Not because you stopped loving me, because you were protecting me. Tony wasn't the first person to get too close to the truth about Marcus's operation. There was a journalist in Chicago, an FBI accountant in D.C., all accidents, all convenient. Dominic stepped closer, close enough that she could smell his cologne, the same one he'd worn when they were together. If I'd stayed, if Marcus had suspected you knew anything, Victoria's world tilted again. 3 years of carefully constructed, rage crumbling like sand. You bastard. You let me think you'd betrayed me. You let me hate you. It was safer that way. For who? For you or for me? For both of us. His voice was raw now, stripped of pretense. Do you think it was easy? Walking away from the only woman I've ever loved? Watching you from a distance, seeing you succeed, knowing I could never be part of it? You've been watching me? Dominic's jaw tightened. I had to make sure you were safe. That Marcus never suspected the connection. Victoria wanted to hit him, to scream at him for the 3 years of pain and loneliness he'd put her through. Instead, she found herself stepping closer, drawn by the magnetic pull that had always existed between them. So why now? Why risk everything to contact me? Because Marcus is getting ready to make his move. The Kozlov family is planning something big, and they need Caldwell and Associates to make it legitimate. If you're not careful, you're going to end up as collateral damage. A car door slammed somewhere in the darkness behind them. Victoria spun around, her heart hammering against her ribs, expecting someone. Dominic's voice was sharp with alarm. No, I came alone. Footsteps echoed. Off the concrete, deliberate and measured, Victoria recognized the sound of expensive Italian leather on pavement. Victoria, darling, what are you doing out here in this god-forsaken place? Marcus Caldwell emerged from the shadows like a well-dressed specter. 58, he was still, imposing, his silver hair perfectly styled, despite the late hour and recent storm. His charcoal suit was immaculate, and his smile was warm and paternal. The same smile that had comforted her through law school, through her parents' deaths, through Dominic's abandonment. Marcus. Victoria's voice sounded strange to her own ears. What are you doing here? Following you, I'm afraid. His pale blue eyes shifted to Dominic, and the temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Hello, Dominic. You look well for a dead man. Victoria felt Dominic tense beside her, and she realized with crystalline clarity that they were trapped. The pier stretched behind them into empty water, and Marcus stood between them and the only escape route. You killed my brother, Dominic said quietly. Tony made a poor choice in employers, Marcus replied, his voice conversational. I offered him a generous severance package. He declined. The casual admission of murder hit Victoria like a physical blow. This was the man who'd been her mentor, her father figure, her friend. The man she'd trusted with her life, her career, her future. How long have you known? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Marcus's smile widened. About Tony. From the beginning. About Dominic's miraculous resurrection. About 6 months. About his feelings for you. His eyes glittered with malicious amusement. Always. The world tilted sickeningly. Victoria realized that everything, her entire career, her success, her relationship with Marcus, had been built on lies. You used me, she breathed. I invested in you, darling. There's a difference. Marcus reached into his coat, and Victoria saw the glint of gunmetal. I'm afraid that investment is no longer profitable. Time crystallized into razor-sharp fragments. Victoria watched Marcus's hand emerge from his coat with surgical precision. The black metal of his gun, catching light from the distant city. Dominic moved like liquid mercury, grabbing Victoria and pulling her behind a concrete piling as the first shot shattered the night air. Stay down, he breathed against her ear, his body shielding hers from the second shot that sent concrete chips flying like shrapnel. Victoria's legal mind, trained to remain calm under pressure, catalogued impossible details. Hamas. The smell of Dominic's leather jacket, the sound of her own heartbeat thundering in her ears. The way Marcus's footsteps echoed against the pier as he approached their hiding place with the patience of a hunter who knew his prey had nowhere to run. This is unfortunate, Victoria, Marcus called out, his voice carrying the same paternal disappointment he'd used when she'd made mistakes as a young associate. I genuinely hoped it wouldn't come to this. Dominic was scanning their surroundings, his body coiled with the tension of a man who'd learned to survive in places where survival wasn't guaranteed. Victoria noticed details about him she'd missed. Before, the way he moved suggested military training. The scar on his temple wasn't from a car accident. What aren't you telling me? She whispered. His green eyes met hers, and she saw 3 years of secrets swimming in their depths. Later, if we survive this, another shot rang out, closer this time. Marcus was systematically checking each piling, each potential hiding spot. Marcus continued conversationally. I actually considered letting you live, Victoria. You've been such an asset to the firm, but Dominic's reappearance changes things. The two of you together posed a significant risk. Victoria's mind raced through escape scenarios with the cold precision that had made her legendary in the courtroom. The pier was isolated, the nearest populated area half a mile away. Marcus's car blocked the main approach, The only other option was the water, and the East River in October was a death sentence. "There's a boat," Dominic murmured, apparently reading her thoughts. "About 50 yards east. Maintenance vessel. "'Kay, you get us there?" "Not both of us. He's too close." Victoria understood immediately. One of them would have to create a distraction. While the other ran, one of them would probably die doing it. "Take these." Dominic pressed something into her hands. "Donnie's documents. Get them to the FBI. Agent Sarah Chen at the Financial Crimes Unit. She's clean." "No." Victoria's fingers closed around his wrist. "We go together or not at all." "Victoria, be reasonable. You have a life to go back to. A career. I've been dead for 3 years already. Running and hiding isn't living." She met his eyes steadily. "And I'm not losing you again." Marcus's footsteps had stopped. In the sudden silence, Victoria could hear water lapping against the pier's supports and the distant hum of traffic on the FDR drive. "I know you can hear me," Marcus said, his voice now coming from their left instead of straight ahead. "Was flanking them, Victoria, I want you to know that I take no pleasure in this. You were like a daughter to me." "Some father you turned out to be," Victoria called back, buying time while Dominic examined something he'd pulled from his pocket, a small device that looked like a garage door opener. "Fair point," Marcus acknowledged, "though I did give you everything. Success, wealth, respect. All I asked in return was your loyalty and my ignorance. Willful blindness is a valuable skill in our business." Marcus was moving again, closer. "You might have learned that if you'd lived long enough." Dominic held up the device. 3 fingers. 2. 1. Victoria heard a sound like thunder, and suddenly the night erupted in orange flame. One of the warehouses behind Marcus exploded, sending debris raining down on the pier and turning the darkness into blazing day. "Move!" Dominic shouted, grabbing Victoria's hand. They ran toward the boat, concrete fragments and burning debris falling around them like meteoric rain. "Them." Victoria heard Marcus cursing, his footsteps pounding after them. The boat was a small Coast Guard patrol vessel. It's probably abandoned after Hurricane Sandy. Dominic helped Victoria aboard, then jumped in himself, his hands flying over unfamiliar controls. "Please tell me you know how to drive this thing," Victoria gasped. "I'm figuring it out." The engine coughed to life just as Marcus appeared at the edge of the pier, his suit torn and dusty from the explosion. He raised his gun, and Victoria saw his finger tighten on the trigger. "Get down." She threw herself against Dominic just as the shot rang out. The bullet meant for him caught her in the shoulder instead, spinning her around and sending her crashing against the boat's console. Pain exploded through her like liquid fire, and she tasted blood. "Victoria." Dominic's voice seemed to come from very far away. The boat lurched forward, carrying them into the dark water. Victoria tried to focus on Dominic's face, but the world was spinning, and her shoulder felt like it was on fire. She could hear Marcus shouting from the pier, but his words were lost in the engine noise and the sound of her own pulse hammering in her ears. "Stay with me," Dominic was saying, his hands pressing something against her shoulder. "We're going to get you help." "The documents," she mumbled. "I have them. Just focus on staying conscious." Victoria looked back toward the pier, where Marcus stood silhouetted against the burning warehouse like a figure from Dante's Inferno. Even at this distance, she could see his face, and what she saw there chilled her more than the October wind cutting across the water. "He was smiling, Dominic," she whispered. "That was too easy." "What? He let us go?" The realization hit her like another bullet. "Marcus let us escape." Why would he do that? Unless what? Victoria's vision was starting to tunnel, but her mind was still working with crystalline clarity. Unless he wanted us to run, unless this was all part of his plan. The boat shuddered as they hit the wake from a passing freight vessel, and Victoria saw Dominic's face change as understanding dawned. "Son of a bitch," he breathed. "We're not escaping. We're being herded." The safe house was a converted warehouse in Red Hook, all exposed brick and industrial shadows. Victoria lay on a makeshift bed while Dominic cleaned her wound with military precision. His hands steady despite the tremor she'd noticed when he'd thought she wasn't looking. "It went through clean," he said, wrapping her shoulder with gauze that was already turning pink. "You'll live, but you need a hospital. No hospitals." Victoria struggled to sit up, ignoring the fire that shot through her shoulder. "Marcus has people everywhere. The moment I show up in an ER, we're both dead." The warehouse was Spartan but functional. Dominic had obviously prepared it as a backup location. Canned food, medical supplies, communications equipment. It spoke of a man who'd learned to live, always looking over his shoulder. "How long have you been planning this?" she asked. Dominic didn't answer immediately. He was studying surveillance feeds on multiple monitors, his face illuminated by the blue glow of screens showing various Manhattan locations. Victoria recognized some of them. The Caldwell and Associates building, her apartment, X's penthouse. 3 years, he said finally. "Ever since Tony died?" "That's not what I mean." Victoria's voice was stronger now, anger burning away the fog of pain and shock. "This safe house, the surveillance, the explosive device you used at the pier. You didn't set this up to investigate Marcus. You set it up to destroy him." Dominic's shoulders tensed, but he didn't turn around. On the screens, Victoria could see Marcus's security detail taking positions around her apartment building. "He killed my brother. So this is about revenge. This is about justice. Don't lie to me, not after everything." Victoria forced herself to stand, her legs unsteady but her voice firm. "I've spent 3 years learning to read people, to see through their lies. You're not investigating, Marcus. You're not protecting me. You're using me." He finally turned, and the expression on his face confirmed her worst fears. Guilt, resignation, and underneath it all, the same cold calculation she'd seen in Marcus's eyes. "The documents Tony gave me weren't enough," he said quietly. "Marcus was too careful, too insulated. I needed someone inside his organization. Someone he trusted completely." The words hit Victoria like physical blows. "Someone like me? I never meant for you to get hurt." "You never meant for me to get hurt?" Victoria's voice rose, despite her efforts to stay calm. "You abandoned me for 3 years? Let me build my entire life on a foundation of lies. Let me trust the man who murdered your brother. And now you tell me it was all part of your plan? Not all of it?" Dominic moved toward her, and Victoria backed away until she hit the brick wall. "My feelings for you were real. Are real. Everything else, the investigation, the revenge, it was separate." "Was it? Or did you calculate that too? That the best way to get close to Marcus was through the woman he considered a daughter?" The silence stretched between them, filled with the hum of electronics and the distant sound of traffic. Victoria watched Dominic's face, saw the moment he chose truth over comfort. "Yes," he said simply. The admission shattered something inside her that she'd thought was already broken beyond repair. Victoria slumped against the wall, the fight draining out of her along with what felt like the last of her blood. 3 years, she whispered. 3 years of thinking you'd thrown away everything we had because I wasn't enough. Because I was too boring, too ordinary, too safe for someone like you. Victoria, that's not, and instead, I was just another mark. Another asset to be cultivated and used. It wasn't like that, wasn't it?" She met his eyes, and this time, she was the one who looked through him. "Tell me something, Dominic. When did you decide to use me? Before you met me, or after?" The question hung in the air like a blade. Victoria watched his face, saw the exact moment he realized there was no answer that wouldn't destroy her completely. "Before," he said finally. Victoria closed her eyes, and for a moment she was back in that law school lecture hall where they'd first met. She'd thought it was chance, serendipity, fate bringing them together. But it had all been orchestrated. Their meet-cute, their courtship, their love affair. All of it designed to get him close to Marcus Caldwell. "The conference where we met," she said. "You knew I'd be there. Marcus was guest speaker. I knew he'd bring his star student. Our first date. The restaurant you chose just happened to be Marcus's favorite. I needed him to see us together. to start thinking of me as part of your life, and when you told me you loved me. Dominic's face cracked, revealing genuine pain beneath the calculated exterior. That was real. Victoria, you have to believe me. Everything else was strategy, but what I felt for you was real. How convenient. Victoria's voice was steady now, cold as winter rain. Too bad I'll never know which parts were performance and which were authentic. Too bad you made sure I could never trust anything about us. She moved away from the wall, past him, toward the bank of monitors. On screen, she could see Marcus's men taking positions around the warehouse district. They found us, she observed. Dominic spun toward the screens, his face paling as he took in the deployment of forces. That's impossible. Its location is clean. I've been careful. Victoria almost smiled. Almost. You've been careful about everything except the most important thing. What are you talking about? She turned to face him, and Dominic took a step backward at the expression on her face. You assumed Marcus was the only one playing games, Victoria said softly. You assumed I was just an innocent pawn to be manipulated. You never considered that I might have learned from the master. Understanding dawned in Dominic's eyes like sunrise over a wasteland. The phone call, he breathed. Tonight, you didn't just happen to be working late. I was waiting for you to contact me. I've been waiting for 3 years. How did you... No. Victoria reached into her purse and pulled out a small recording device. Marcus told me everything 6 months ago. About Tony. About you. About the Kozlov connection. He needed someone inside your operation. Someone you'd trust completely. The device between them might as well have been a loaded gun. Dominic stared at it, then at her, his face cycling through disbelief, betrayal, and finally, recognition. You're working for him. I'm working for justice, Victoria corrected. Marcus may be a killer, but you're a terrorist, Dominic. It's that warehouse you blew up tonight. There was a security guard inside, a father of 3. I checked. It was empty. You checked wrong. Just like you've been wrong about everything else. Victoria's voice was steady, professional. The voice she used in court when delivering closing arguments. Did you really think I'd spent 3 years mourning you without learning the truth? Did you think I'd built a career on Marcus's foundation without understanding exactly what kind of man he was? Then why? Dominic's voice was raw with confusion and betrayal. If you knew what he was, why work with him? Because sometimes you have to get close to the devil to drag him back to hell. The truth hung between them like broken glass, sharp enough to cut, impossible to repair. Victoria watched Dominic process her revelation, saw the exact moment he understood the full scope of her deception. How long? He asked quietly. 6 months after you left. Victoria's shoulder throbbed, but she remained standing, her voice steady. I couldn't accept that you'd just abandoned me, so I investigated. I'm very good at uncovering secrets, Dominic. You taught me that. What did you find? Financial records showing payments to a private investigator. It's the same investigator who'd been tracking Tony's activities for Marcus. Victoria moved to the window, watching Marcus's men take positions in the shadows below. It didn't take long to piece together the rest. Marcus had you under surveillance from the beginning. He knew about your brother, your military background, your need for revenge. It's impossible. I was careful. You were obvious. Victoria turned back to him, and for the first time since he'd called her tonight, she smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. A mysterious stranger appears in New York just months after Tony Cross's death. Starts dating the protege of the man responsible. Did you really think Marcus wouldn't notice the coincidence? The monitoring equipment around them began to chime softly. Proximity alarms. Marcus's people were closing in. So everything, Dominic said slowly. Tonight the pier, this warehouse. It was all a trap. Yes. Victoria's voice carried no satisfaction, only exhaustion. Marcus needed you to reveal your evidence, your methods, your contacts. He needed to know how much damage you could do before he eliminated you permanently, and you helped him. I helped justice. Victoria moved to one of the computers and began typing rapidly. Marcus may have killed your brother, but your solution was to become a terrorist. That warehouse explosion tonight killed an innocent man. How many more would have died if I'd let you continue? On the screens, tactical teams were moving with military precision through the warehouse district. Victoria recognized the lead figure even from this distance. Marcus himself, commanding the operation like a general directing a siege. Something else, she said without looking up from the computer. Something Marcus doesn't know. Dominic moved closer, wary now, but curious despite himself. What? I wasn't just gathering intelligence on you for him. I was gathering intelligence on him for the FBI. Victoria's fingers flew over the keyboard, uploading files to a secure server. Agent Sarah Chen, Financial Crimes Unit. You were right about her being clean. She's been my contact for 2 years. 2 years. Dominic stared at her as understanding dawned. You've been playing both sides. I've been playing all sides. Victoria finished the upload and turned to face him. Marcus thinks I'm his loyal protege, helping him eliminate a threat. You thought I was your innocent former lover, being manipulated by forces beyond my control. The FBI thinks I'm a heroic whistleblower risking everything to bring down corruption. What are you really? Victoria considered the question, surprised to find she wasn't entirely sure herself anymore. I'm someone who learned that the world is more complicated than good guys and bad guys. Someone who learned that sometimes you have to become the thing. You hate to destroy it. Proximity alarms were getting more urgent. Through the windows, Victoria could see muzzle flashes as Marcus's teams neutralized Dominic's security measures with ruthless efficiency. They'll be here in 5 minutes, she observed. We need to go. No. Victoria's voice was firm. You need to go. I'm staying. Victoria, if Marcus finds you here, he'll find exactly what he expects to find. His loyal associate wounded while trying to help him capture a dangerous terrorist. A woman who risked her life to bring him the evidence he needed to tie up loose ends. Dominic's face went white. We'll kill you anyway. You know too much. Maybe. Or maybe he'll decide I'm too valuable to waste. Either way, my job is done. Victoria gestured to the computer. Not. Everything Marcus has done, every murder, every illegal transaction, it's all uploaded to the FBI servers now, including tonight's operation. Even if he kills me, he's finished. And me? Victoria looked at him for a long moment, seeing not the man who'd deceived her, not the terrorist who'd killed an innocent guard, but the broken soul who'd lost his brother and found no path to justice except through vengeance. There's a boat. At Pier 12, the Kozlov organization uses it to smuggle contraband, take it to international waters, then disappear, become someone else. Come with me. The words hung in the air like a prayer. Victoria felt their pull, the same magnetic attraction that had drawn them together in the first place. But she'd learned to resist magnetic pulls. She'd learned that some attractions were just gravity wells, pulling you toward destruction. I can't. This is my city, my life, my responsibility. Someone has to make sure justice is served, even if it's messy, and complicated and morally ambiguous. Victoria, go! She moved to a wall panel and opened it, revealing a hidden exit. They don't know about this passage. It leads to the subway tunnels. Dominic hesitated at the threshold, looking back at her with an expression that combined love, regret, and something that might have been respect. For what it's worth, he said quietly, I really did love you. Not the asset, not the connection to Marcus. You? I know, Victoria replied. And for what it's worth, I loved you too. The man I thought you were anyway. Maybe in another life, we would have been different people. Better people. Victoria smiled sadly. But we are who we are, Dominic, and some things can't be undone. He nodded once, then disappeared into the darkness of the hidden passage. Victoria waited until the sound of his footsteps faded, then moved to the center of the room. She arranged herself carefully, making sure the blood from her shoulder wound had stained the floor appropriately. Making sure the evidence of Dominic's presence was obvious, but not too obvious. When Marcus's team breached the main entrance 3 minutes later, they found her exactly where she needed to be found. Wounded but alive, loyal but traumatized, the perfect victim of circumstances beyond her control. Victoria. Marcus rushed to her side, his face a masterpiece of concern and relief. Thank God you're alive. When we lost contact, he got away. Victoria whispered, allowing real exhaustion to color her voice. I tried to stall him, but he was too paranoid, too careful. Marcus helped her to her feet, his touch gentle and paternal. But Victoria caught the quick scan his eyes made of the room, cataloging what was missing, what had been taken. "Did he hurt you badly? He shot me when I tried to stop him from destroying his files." Victoria gestured weakly toward the computers, several of which showed signs of recent damage. "I managed to save some of it, but you did wonderfully, darling." Marcus's smile was warm, proud, more than anyone could have expected. Over his shoulder, Victoria saw Agent Chen emerge from the shadows with the FBI tactical team. Their eyes met briefly, and Chen gave an almost imperceptible nod. The evidence had been received. The trap was closing, but not just on Marcus. As the paramedics loaded Victoria onto a stretcher, as Marcus played the concerned mentor for the cameras that were already arriving, as Agent Chen began the delicate process of dismantling a criminal empire that had taken decades to build, Victoria allowed herself one moment of perfect clarity. She had one. Justice would be served. The innocent would be protected. And she had lost everything that mattered. Through the warehouse windows, she caught a glimpse of the East River, dark and endless. Under the pre-dawn sky, somewhere out there, Dominic was disappearing into the night, carrying with him the last remnants of the woman she used to be. The woman who believed in fairy tales and happy endings. That woman was dead now, as surely as Tony Cross, as surely as the security guard whose name she didn't even know. Another casualty of the war between justice and vengeance, between love and duty, between the people we are and the people we choose to become. 6 months later, Victoria stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of her new office, watching Manhattan spread out below like a circuit board made of light and shadow. Marcus Caldwell was serving life without parole in a federal supermax prison. The Kozlov organization had been dismantled. Dozens of corrupt officials had been arrested. Victory should have tasted sweeter. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number, but she recognized the words immediately. "The boats leave from Pier 12 every Thursday at midnight. In case you ever want to disappear." Victoria stared at the message until the screen went dark, showing her only her own reflection against the city lights. She looked older now, harder around the edges. Success had marked her just as failure had marked Dominic. She deleted the message without replying. But every Thursday night she found herself working late, her office windows facing east toward the river, toward the piers where boats carried their cargo into the darkness beyond. The reach of law and consequence and the weight of choices that could never be unmade. Some Thursday nights she almost convinced herself she could see a figure standing at the water's edge, looking back toward the city lights, looking back toward her. But that was just wishful thinking, she told herself. Just the ghost of the woman she used to be, haunting the woman she had chosen to become. Justice had been served, and it had cost her everything. The end.